This week's Parshas are Parshas Matos and Masei. So in the middle, towards the beginning of Parshas Matos, we talk about the Milchomas Midyan that HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe to go fight the Midyanim. So the pasuk says, "Nikoim nikmas b'nei Yisrael me'es haMidyanim achar te'azef el hamecha." HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Moshe, "Go take nikama of the b'nei Yisrael." When Moshe Rabbeinu says it over to Klal Yisrael in the next pasuk, he says, "Loses nikmas Hashem b'Midyan." So Moshe Rabbeinu switches it to nikmas Hashem. So the Medrash asked this kasha, the Medrash Rabbah, Parsha Chav Beis, Ois Beis. The Medrash says, "Loses nikmas Hashem b'Midyan." HaKadosh Baruch Hu Amar nikmas b'nei Yisrael, u'Moshe Amar nikmas Hashem b'Midyan. So what's going on? Why is it Bnei Yisrael? Is it Nikmas Hashem? So Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu, Lahem einei ela deiku shelachem shegarmu li lahazik eisan. Kadosh Baruch Hu said that it's because of you, Bnei Yisrael. Amar Moshe, Ribono Olamim. Moshe told Kadosh Baruch Hu, Im hayinu areilim ay oivdei avodas kechavim ay kaifrei mitzvahs loy hayu seinen eisanim. If we wouldn't do any mitzvahs, if we would just be like oivdei avodas zara, they wouldn't hate us. They only are running after us because of the Torah and the mitzvahs that you gave us. So that's why Moshe Rabbeinu switched it to Nikmas Hashem, that it's only because of you. Loses Nikmas Hashem b'Midyan. And this could be really what Rashi means. Rashi says Nikmas Hashem, Lefisha Aymed Keneged Yisrael, Kilu Aymed Keneged HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That somebody who stands against Klal Yisrael is Ki'ilu, they are fighting Keneged HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So this is a Hafaldik Medrash that Moshe told the Eibishter that the only reason they hate us is because we do the Torah, because we keep the Torah. So Memela, it's really Nikmas Hashem. But I saw a fascinating Kliyakar. The Kliyakar, he asked the Medrash's Kasha again, why does it say Nikmas? Why did Moshe say Nikmas Hashem if HaKadosh Baruch Hu said Nikmas B'nei Yisrael? And he also asks that Rashi, everybody knows Rashi says, and this is also a Medrash, that even though Moshe heard that his Misa was going to be Tully in this, because take Nikama, HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe, take Nikama against Klal Yisrael, then you're Achar Te'asef El HaMecha, afterwards you're going to die. So still it was, Moshe Rabbeinu did it b'simcha. So practically, how did Rashi know this? Maybe Moshe Rabbeinu was sad and he did it anyways because HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him to do it. Of course he's going to do it. And then he asks one more kasha. Later on it says, Vayimasru, when Moshe was gathering the Bnei Yisrael to fight, it says Vayimasru, which sounds like they were forced to do it. So Rashi brings, again, it's a Sifri and a Tanchuma, that to show you how chaviv the leaders of Klal Yisrael are to Klal Yisrael. Before they heard that Moshe was going to die, Moshe Rabbeinu was scared for his life. Once they heard that Moshe Rabbeinu was going to be taken after the Nekama of Midyan, they had to be forced to go into fight with Midyan because they didn't want Moshe Rabbeinu to die. So the Kliyakar asks, what was the force? Yeah, we find the Torah says Vayimasu, but what actually forced them? What was going on? So Zak the Kliyakar married the Kipshat that the Midyanim really did two things. They did one thing wrong, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that they made Klal Yisrael be Mezana and be Oivdei Avodah Zarah. They also did something wrong, which was because of them, 24,000 people in Klal Yisrael got killed. So they did one thing that was Ra l'Shamayim and one thing that was Ra to Bnei Yisrael. So that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu was saying. Nekaim nikmas Bnei Yisrael me'es haMidyanim. Take the Nekama of Bnei Yisrael, meaning HaKadosh Baruch Hu was saying, what happened to me, I'm Michael. What they did to me, I'm Michael. But what they did to Klal Yisrael, take Nekama. So when Moshe heard this, and he heard Achar Te'asef El Hamecha, that he heard that his Misa was totally in this, so he said, if he's going to tell Klal Yisrael that Hakadosh Baruch Hu is Michael on what they ba'avled him, but he's not Michael on what they did to Klal Yisrael, because that's in between Klal Yisrael and Midyan. But Klal Yisrael is going to hear that the Misa of Moshe is totally in doing this Milchama. So Klal Yisrael is going to say, we're Michael Archelik too, and we're not going to go fight. So Moshe Rabbeinu went and switched it. He said, Lases Nikmas Hashem. He switched it in order that Klal Yisrael should not chap that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was Michael on his chelik, and Memela, this forced Klal Yisrael to do it right away, because if HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants his Nekama, he's not Michael, you're gonna have to do it. You can't be Michael on HaKadosh Baruch Hu's cheshbon. So Zakta Kliyaka, this answers everything. Why did Moshe change it? Because he didn't want Klal Yisrael not to go ahead and do the Milchama. How did Rashi know and the Medrash know that Moshe Rabbeinu was besimcha? Because he went and switched it. He did this whole plan to make sure that Klal Yisrael would do what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. And what was the hechrich? What forced them to do it is because Moshe Rabbeinu did the switcheroo, and that's what forced them to do the Milchama and not have a cheshbon of Moshe Rabbeinu's Misa, because it was Nekama of Hashem. L'maisa, you have to know, why does this Parsha of Nekamas Midyan come right after the Parsha of Nedarim? What does Parshas Matos start off? What is the whole first Aliyah? The whole first Aliyah is about Nedarim, making Nedarim and Shvuas. What's the shaychus between HaKadosh Baruch Hu telling Moshe to do the Nekama against Midyan to the previous Parsha of Nedarim? So I found in the Bali Taisvis on Chumash from the Rivah. The Rivah brings a fascinating shtickle. I'll read you word for word. Zak the Rivah. L'kach nismecha parsha zu leparsha zu loymar kevan sheshama Moshe lo yachal devarei hu einay Michael abel acherim matir noisei. That the parsha we learn out that a person can't be Mayfair, can't get rid of his own neder, but somebody else could. So Amar Beliba, he said in his heart, Shema nishal HaKadosh Baruch Hu al nidrei bepamalya shal maila v'yikanes l'eretz sichain v'aig shuhu eretz Yisrael. He said, maybe HaKadosh Baruch Hu was shoyal on his neder by the bezdin shal maila. So Amalei HaKadosh Baruch Hu loy k'sha'at hasaver ela nikayim nikmasi b'Midyan. Take nekama from Midyan v'acher kach te'asef el amecha. I never swore that you shouldn't go into Sichon Va'ig. That you shouldn't go across the Yarden. Kain Pirish Ram Mikutzi. So the shaykhs between the two Parshias, Zakter Riva B'Shem the Ram Mikutzi, which are Bali Taisus, that Moshe Rabbeinu thought that maybe the neder was hutar, maybe HaKadosh Baruch Hu was shoyal on his neder, just like the whole parsha of Nedarim before, and he thought maybe now he could go into Eretz Yisrael. So Zak HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, no, that's not the case. I was not shoyal on my neder. So the Rabbeinu Bachya brings this also, and he says, She'eni mischarit mishvuasi shenishbati. I don't have charata, lachein lo yisaviu. That's why you're not going to come. Lekach nismecha leparsha nidre hedyet shuhu mischarit. That's why it says right near the parsha of nidre hedyet that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was telling Moshe, I don't have charata on my shvur. Okay. The pasuk in the beginning of the parsha says, Vayidaber Moshe el Roshei Matos of Bnei Yisrael lemar. So Moshe spoke to the heads of the Shvatim, to Bnei Yisrael. So Rashi right away is bothered. Why does it say Roshei Matos here? Zok Rashi that really all the other mitzvahs that Moshe Rabbeinu said were also said to the Nesiim first and then afterwards Bnei Yisrael. So why does it say it here? So Zok Rashi brings the Sifri, and the Gemara learns it out from here also, that it's coming to tell you that when you go to a chacham, even one chacham by himself, a yachid mumche, who's a mumche, who knows, he could be made for Nedarim. That's what it's saying, Rashi Hamatas, to teach you that halacha. So that's how Rashi goes, I'll pee this for free. But the Ramban says, he says that really the whole parsha of Nedarim was said to Rashi Hamatas, Zakder ki ein tzarich lelamed lekol Yisrael. You don't have to teach all of Klal Yisrael these halachas. V'ulai tzarich lahalim ela hachukim mehem shelo yinagu kalos reish b'nedarim. The Ramban says maybe even you should hide it from them, so they shouldn't be noy kalos reish nedarim, because or else people could just make nedarim, and then they'll go afterwards to a chacham to be matir. Avol lechachmei Yisrael rasheim shivteim limed hamishpat. But to the Chachmei Yisrael, that's who Moshe Rabbeinu taught it to. And the Ramban goes on, he says, V'hine heter nedarim lo nisparish b'Torah. It's not even said in the Torah b'ferish. Aval hu halacha l'Moshe misinai. It's halacha l'Moshe misinai. Utalei hakasav b'chut ha'sayra k'Moshe amru heter nedarim parchim ba'aver. The Gemara in Chagiga says that heter nedarim are just flying in the air. V'ein lahem al mashi yismeichu. There's nowhere really that it says. El sheramaz lo yakasav. There's only a remez in the Torah, because the Torah says lo yachal devarei, like we said, but other people could be meichel for you. Other people could. The chacham could. So zakder v'atam bazeh kasher amarti she'asa heter aneder v'ashvua kesisrei ha'Torah shelo ye'amru elo l'ruyim lahem v'yikasu b'remizah. So Ramban says, not like Rashi, that the reason why it says Rashi Amatis is because the Moshe Dafka wanted it to only say it to the heads of the Klal Yisrael, because he did not want to say it to everybody, so that people shouldn't be knowing Kalas Reish. And the Ramban is saying Moridik L'Shonis is Kesisrei Torah. But I saw another Moridik Pshat, Al Pi the Ramban, that it's only to Rashi Amatis, and we'll be mamshich and come to the Pshat. The Gemara in Brachos, Daf Lamed Beis Lamed Aleph, says by the Egel, when Moshe davened by Yichal, Moshe, Pasuk says, Yichal Moshe es Pnei Hashem. So the Gemara says, the Rava Omar, what's the lashon of Yichal? Ad shehefer lo nidrei, that Moshe davened until Hakadosh Baruch Hu was made for the neder. Ksiv hacha Yichal. It says over here, Yichal ksiv hasam lo yachal devarei. That Moshe davened by the Egel, and what was he doing? He was being made for HaKadosh Baruch Hu's neder. He was saying the promise that you made, I'm being made for it. So as they state in the Gemara, the Rashba in Perushei Agadis says that this whole lashon of Rava is ha'inyan hazeh nemar b'derech mashal. It's mamish only a mashal. And what was the Gemara saying? Sheramaz lanu akasav kan shebeschusei va'avasei shel Moshe hutar ha'einish, that because the schus of Moshe, the einish was put away. V'nistalku pnei akas v'nisratza lahem. V'hu ke'inyan heter nedarim. It's like heter nedarim. And the Rajva says this whole Gemara is a mashal. And he says a little later on, he says, and don't say, the Gemara brings, so you see, it's mamash talking about Nedarim, and it's saying that just like in Nedarim, the person who makes the neder, he can't be matir for himself until other people are matir for him. So too, HaKadosh Baruch Hu couldn't be matir for himself until Moshe was. Zakter Ashba, because Shehu Yisparach ain't sarich laheter acherim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't need other people's hetes. V'rachuk mikol dimyan ke'elu. V'layiviu kan l'dimyan emaisa. And it wasn't brought here for real. El l'dimyan lashon bilvad. It was only a lashon bilvad. So the Rashba says this whole Gemara is just a mashal. It's not mamish saying that Moshe was matir the neder. Maisa Taisvis in Baba Basra, and another Gemara, a famous Gemara, the Gemara says that Ahutaya, there was an Arab that brought Rabbi Bar Chana. He wanted to show him Har Sinai, so he brings him to Har Sinai, and Rabbi Chana says, "Shamati Baskel Shaimeres Oili Shenishbati." That I made a shvua, va'achshav shenishbati, and now that I made a shvua, me meferli. Who's going to be mefer? So ki asaylik hamed Rabbanan, when they came to Rabbanan, amrulei, they told me, right? Why weren't you hayalach leimer muferlach? Rabbi Bar Chana should have said, "Yeah, Hakadosh Baruch Hu, it's over. Your shvua is done." And the Gemara explains the shakla v'tarya. So Taisus asks. Frag Taisus, v'achshav shenishbati mi meferli, v'tema, da'amayin HaKadosh Baruch Hu mefer ba'atzmai. Why couldn't HaKadosh Baruch Hu be mefer himself? Ta'amaskinan b'meseches chagiga, the Nedarim yesh le'an afara. Midechsev gufa from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How do we know? The Gemara in Chagiga Daf Yud Amud Aleph says, how do we know b'chlal that a chacham could be matir a neder? Midechsev, because it says a pasuk asher nishbati ve'api. V'darshina, and the Gemara darshins ba'api nishbati v'charzarni, right? That I'm chayzer. So Alma, you see, shu mefer ba'atzmai, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu could be made for himself. So Taisus asks on this, I got it to why couldn't HaKadosh Baruch Hu be made for himself? If you see, you goofa learn out that HaKadosh Baruch Hu could be made for that a chacham. How do you know that a chacham? One of the limudim that a chacham himself could be made for is gufa from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Then Taisus asks, "Vahi kasha," but on that Gemara it's shver the heich mefer la'atzmai. How could HaKadosh Baruch Hu be made for himself? Va'aminan beperk elu dvarim lo yachal dvarim mikan lechacham she'ein mefer la'atzmai. So we say there's a Gemara in Nedarim that a chacham shouldn't be made for his own neder. So he's asking a kasha on his kasha. But so the Marsha in Brachas Daf Lamed Beis Amud Aleph, the Marsha says that really, if you look at the Medrash in Shemais, the Medrash says in Parsha Mem Gimel Ois Daled, the Medrash says Zok the Marsha that Moshe Rabbeinu really was going to be was made for the neder. How do you see that? Zok the Medrash. Amar Moshe, Ribayna Olam v'loi nasata li afar shalom darim v'amarta ishki yider neder l'Hashem ayishav hashvua lesser yisrael nafshe le'yachal dvarei huayna meichel aval chacham meichel es nidrei be'esh yishal alav v'chal zaken shemayra hayraim yirtze she'ikablu achem hayrazei tzarchu l'kaima tchila. And if you look further in the Medrash, Rav Huna Bar Acha says sheyashav lahatir nidrei shal yitzrei. And he sat down to be matir the neder of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, Amar loy toya ano al hara asher dibarti lasis la'ami, I have charata, oisa shah, Amar Moshe, mutilach, ein kan neder ve'ein kan shvua. Heavy vayichal Moshe, shehefer nidrei liyitzrei, kemada ad Amar v'lo yachal devarei. So the Marsha says that Avada, that Moshe was being matir the neder, and he says the pshat in the Gemara in Chagiga Daf Yud Amud Aleph that HaKadosh Baruch Hu said ba'api nishbati v'chayzarni bi. Not that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was saying that I was matir myself. He was saying I have charata. So if I have charata, now somebody else could be meichel the shvua. So somebody else could come along. Moshe Rabbeinu could come along and be meichel the shvua. So that's what this Gemara in Baba Basra Daf Ayin Dalar Amud Aleph with this Maisa of Rabbi Bar Chana, that's what Rabbi Bar Chana heard from the Baskel. Oili shenishbati, I have charata, mi meifirli. So the Marsha says that it's not going like Taisus that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is made for himself. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying, I have charata, and now a chacham could come and be matir my neder. But what do you see from here? What do you see from this Medrash and from the Marsha and from Taisus Alein? That they weren't learning like the Rashba, that it's just a derech mashal. No, it's a real shmuz here of hafara and hatara of a chacham. So what you have to know is that Lamaisa, the Gemara uses a lashon of hafara. What's the pshat? Hafara is when a Baal is mefer for his wife, when he's mefer a neder, a shvua of his wife. But hatara is when a chacham is mate the neder. And there's many different halachas. So why does it use a lashon of mefer here? It should use a lashon of hatara. So if you look at Taisvis and Bechayos, Daf Lamed Zayin Amud Aleph at the top, Taisvis says there's a Gemara that uses a lashon of hafara, even though it's talking about a chacham, and Taisvis says lishna dikra nakat, because really gabi chacham shayich lashon hatara. B'chein ba'ameichus asfina gabi baskel dika amar ba'achshav shenishbati mi meferli. The same thing is Zak Taisvis, the Gemara in Bava Basra, that we're talking about this story, where the Baskel said, "Mi meferli Zak Taisvis lishna dikra nakat." That's the lashon of the pasuk. But avada it means hatara. Azay Zak Taisvis in Bechayos Daf Lamed Zayin Amud Aleph. Lamaisa, the Mishnah Melech, in two places, Be'ikr in Hilchas Nedarim Perek Zayin Halacha Tes. It's also in Hilchas Shvuas Perek Vav Halacha Zayin. The Mishnah Melech asks a kasha on both of these Gemaras. In fact, the Mishnah Melech, how could Rabbah? The Gemara says mi meferli, and the Chachamim said hayalach mufer lach, hayalach laimar mufer lach. You should have been mefer it. L'chayra, in fact, the Mishnah Melech, Rabbah was negea b'davar. He was negea. If somebody who's negea is not allowed to be mater and neder, be mater and neder. A Chacham who's negea b'davar is not allowed to be mater and neder. And he also asks that lefi the shita, that if something is tayelas l'chala olam for the whole world, you can't be matir it. So how would Rabbi Bar Chana be able to be mefer? Then he asks on the Gemara and Brachas Daf Lamed Beis Amud Aleph, fact there, that how could Moshe Rabbeinu have been able to be mefer the neder? Zak there, what did HaKadosh Baruch Hu say? HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, Lech raid, go down. Raid migdulascha, nasati lach gedula, ella b'shvil Yisrael. Kevin she'en Yisrael ba'olam ein lecha gedula. So kumtais, there was a tayelis for Moshe. He was negeh b'davar. So how could Moshe Rabbeinu be matir this neder? L'chayr he was negeh b'davar. So, and you see, Vaita, the Mishnah Melech is learning not like the Rashba that it's just a derech mashal. He's learning that it's mamish. He's learning that it's mamish talking about hilchas hafara, hilchas hatara, and he's asking how could Moshe Rabbeinu do it, and how could Rabbi Bar Chana have been matir it? So there's a medrash. The Eitz Yosef brings this medrash. It's a medrash sheicher taif in Tehillim, Mizmor Tzadi. The medrash says, Amar Reb Yehuda b'Reb Simon b'Shem Rish Lakish, Lama nikra shmoya Isha Elikim. Why is Moshe called Isha Elikim? Ma ha'ish mevakish lahafer nidre ishtei mefer v'mevakish mekayim shenemar Isha yifirenu. Kach kiviyachol Moshe oimel HaKadosh Baruch Hu kuma Hashem shuva Hashem. So kiviyachol Moshe tells HaKadosh Baruch Hu kuma Hashem shuva Hashem that Moshe is like a Baal to Ishtei. Moshe was like a husband of the Shechina. And the Goyin in Adaris Eliyahu, he says this, and it's really a Zohar. It's coming from very similar to this Medrash. The Goyin is going on Isha Elikim, Zok the Goyin, Moedik L'Shainis, says Ki Baila de Maturnisa. Moshe Rabbeinu is Ki'ilu, a husband of the Shechina. Later on in the shtickle he says, Ki Matunisa hu Ashchina, Hamanheges es haaretz al pi hateva. The Maturnisa, the Shechina, is what's manning the world al pi hateva. Aval hu haya l'mayla me hateva. K'may ish hu l'mayla min ha'isha b'chashivas. Just like a ish is better than a isha in chashivas. So Moshe Rabbeinu is Baila de Matunisa. He's the husband of the Shechina. So Zakt, the Teres Chaim and Bava Basra Ayin Dalar Amud Aleph. when it says over here, mi meferli, zok the Teres Chaim, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was saying, a tzaddik is like a husband. That's why they're called Isha Lekim. He doesn't bring the Medrash Sheichetay Mamish, but he says that Chazal Darshan Moishel Ba'adam Tzaddik Moshe Yirs Elikim Mi Moishel Bi who's Moishel Mi Tzaddik. So that's why the Gemara uses a lashon Achshav Shenishbati Mi Meferli. Who could be Mefer? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu was looking for a Talmid Chacham or a Tzaddik that has this kayach of Moshe Rabbeinu of Baila de Maturnisa, that the Chacham or the Tzaddik is like the husband of the Shechina. And if you look at the Shmuel Shmelka Taibish in the Eitzim Mefarshim or the Yalkim Mefarshim in the back of the Gemara in the Aflam Beis in Brachas, he says the same thing. He says that he brings that medrash. He brings the medrash Sheichetay that the lashon of Heifer Nidre is correct because Moshe Rabbeinu is begeder a Baal, and a Baal could be Mefer a Neder and a Shvua of a wife. So the Chsam Sofer al Pizeh, Zok the Chsam Sofer in Gittin Daf Lamed Hey Beis. He says that Lefi Zeh, it's miyushiv the kashas of the Mishnah Melech. He says, read his lashon, achachacha mefer kebali ishtay keviyachel, v'amikubalim aimrim isha lekim baila de maternisa keviyachel, v'chein kasav Teres Chaim b'babas Yersham. And he brings the Teres Chaim, and he says that's why the lashon of HaKadosh Baruch Hu was mi meferli. Right, and that's why the lashon of the Chachamim was you should have said muferlach, not muterlach, because he says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu can have charata. There is no such thing as having charata by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But what, and so you couldn't have a Ataras Chacham. What you could have is Afaras Habal. So you don't need you don't need to be mefaret the neder by a Hafaras Habal. So Memela, his answer is the Mishnah Melech's Kashas. Mishnah Melech's Kasha was on both Gemaras. How could Moshe Rabbeinu be mated the neder l'chayis negea b'davar, and how could Rabbi Bar Bachana do it l'chayis negea? And the Mishnah Melech also asks, I forgot to mention that you need to be mefared the neder. So the Zaktik Sam Sefer, your Moshe Rabbeinu and Rabbi Bachana wouldn't be doing it mitaras chacham. They would be doing it mitaras hafaras habal, which doesn't need any of those tanaim. And I actually heard from my uncle Rabbi Kiva Goldstein. He sent me a shtickle Torah from Rabbi Uren Reich, who used the Chsam Sefer says the same exact thing. He says it somewhere else. B'inyan by Kanu by Moshe and the Choshan Me'eshesish. The Chsam Sefer in Drashas, he says this exact same shtickle al pi this Teres Chaim. So the Chsam Sefer used this Teres Chaim a lot. So, Oibazei, I saw in a Sefer Shvilei Pinchas from Pinchas Friedman that he says that that could be that this is what Moshe Rabbeinu was saying. Vayidaber Moshe el Roshei Hamatos. Why did Moshe tell Dafka Roshei Hamatos? So the Ramban says, Rashi goes not like that b'chlal, but the Ramban says because it's Sisrei Torah, nobody else should know it. But like this, it could be it's that Moshe was saying the same way I'm a baila de maternisa, the same way I have this kayach hafara because I'm a baal to the shechina kemat kaviyachol. So the same way I have that kayach, vayidaber Moshe Roshei Hamatos, you have that kayach too. You have that kayach to be made for HaKadosh Baruch Hu's neder. So that's the pshat I saw from the Sefer Shvilei Pinchas. I'll pee this whole shtickle. Why are we saying this whole shtickle? Because when we come over here, what did we say from Rabbeinu Bachya? We said that the reason why the Torah put the Nekama of Midyan next to Nedarim, Zakt the Rabbeinu Bachya, he says that the pshat is She'eni mischarit mishvuasi shenishbati. I don't have charata. But like this whole shtickle Torah, who cares if the Eibishter had charata? L'chayra, Moshe Rabbeinu is like a Baal. Moshe Rabbeinu is like a husband. You don't need charata. You can just be made for the. Moshe Rabbeinu should have just been made for the shvua like a husband, even if he's negeh b'davar, which he for sure is negeh b'davar over here because it's for him not going to Eretz Yisrael. But l'chayra, he should have just been made for the neder. L'maisa, the diak lashon of the Rabbeinu Bachya is that it's she'eni mischari mishvuasi shenishbati, that the Rabbeinu Bachya doesn't hold to this whole shtickle, that you need charata, and you Moshe Rabbeinu needed charata in order to be made for the neder, to be mated the neder, and he for sure couldn't be mated this neder because he was very negeh to it. Yesh layin. I just want to end off with this shtickle. If you look at the Medrash Rabbah in Parshas Mem Gimel Ois Daled, the Medrash doesn't stim so geschmack with these diak l'shainas of the Chassam Sofer, because the Medrash, when it says that Moshe Rabbeinu should be mated the neder as a chacham, the Medrash uses the lashon hafara. Oisa Shah Amar Moshe mutilach mutilach, which is hatara of a chacham. Ein kan neder ve'ein kan shvua. Harei bayichal Moshe shehefer nidre liyitzre. So here it uses afar. And then the next line, Amar Reb Shimon ben Lakish, Lefikach nikra shmai Isha Elokim. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu is called Isha Elokim, which is going like the Medrash Sheicher type, that it's Baal is Mefer to his wife, because he's like a Baal de Matunisa. Loimar shehiter neder le'Elokim, that he was matir the neder. So Reish Lakish, who's going with that Moshe Rabbeinu was Isha Elokim, which is a husband, Reish Lakish says uses a lashon of Hatara, and the Medrash before, which was going with Hatara, uses a lashon Hafara. So the Medrash Alein is very shver, but the Chassam Sofer was saying it in the Gemaras that say the lashon of Hafara with the Teres Chaim and Reb Shmuel Shmuel Ketaybish, that's all their diak in the lashon. Just want to end off that what's the pshat? Why would Moshe Rabbeinu think that after the parsha of Nedarim did the shvua, maybe the Eibishter had charata? What's the pshat? I know there's Rashi in Vos Chanan that says that Rashi says that once Moshe Rabbeinu went into Sichan and Noig, he thought maybe it was Hutar the Neder, because Sichan and Noig are similar to Eretz Yisrael, so he thought Hutar Miksasi, Hutar Kulai. But why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu need to say that over here? So to answer this, I want to say that really you have to know, Nekaim Nikmas B'nei Yisrael Me'es HaMidyanim, why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu make it that he told Moshe, you take the Nekama from Midyan and then afterwards you will die? Why is Moshe's Misa talui in the taking Nekama of Midyan? So the Ramban says, he brings it's really a Medrash, that the Medrash says that Moshe Rabbeinu davened to Hashem that he should see the Nekama of Midyan. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted him to see it before he died. But that doesn't really answer why it's Tully. Yeah, does he have did HaKadosh Baruch Hu want Moshe to see it? Fine. But why is that right after the Milchomas of Midyan is Moshe going to die? So the Baal HaTurim says Pshat, Zok the Baal HaTurim Lefisha Ra Maisa Midyanis V'loikine LaHashem, because Moshe Rabbeinu saw what happened with Cosby and he didn't do Kanois Lekach Nitlu Chayev B'Nikmas Midyanim. So therefore HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, you have to be Masakin this Chait, and that once you're Masakin this Chait, then Achet Yosef El Amecha. This was also bothering me because, first of all, I never knew that this was considered a Chait to Moshe Rabbeinu, a chait that he wasn't a kanoi like Pinchas. That's it's a chiddush of the Baal HaTurim. But Moshe Rabbeinu had aggressor chait, the chait that actually caused it, Mei Meriva. So what's going on? What's tutzach? So 12 years ago, I set up shot in this, And the pshat, I think it's a moedik pshat, it's a mechudesh pshat, but I think it's emes. It's mostly from Chaim Shmulevitz in Sichas Musar, Maimer Ayin Gimel, Parshas Ba'aloischa, Zaktim Chaim Shmulevitz a moedik azach. He says that what was the chait of Mei Meriva? So there's a ganze tummel. And what was the chait of Mei Meriva? Rashi says because Moshe was nitztave to talk to the rock, and instead he hid it. Frekter Ramban Beltz Kasha that can't be the chait because Hakadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe to take the mata with him. Why Hakadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe to take the mata if not that he wanted him to hit it? So Ramban goes in Arichas. He brings the Rambam and the Kas or Shimuna Amorim. Ayin Shom. That's not for now. But Zaktim Chaim Shmulevitz, that the pshat is that there's a Yalkut in Remez Tavshin Samuch Gimel that the Zakt HaKadosh Baruch Hu Iyata Zachor Ma'asa Asala Lebonai. You don't remember what the Sela did to my son? Shenemar Vayanikei Devash Misela. That the Sela gave so much to Klal Yisrael. And afterwards you're gonna go and hit it. You're not kosher to lead my kids. Go take Yeshua Benon. So Zoktim Chaim Shmulevitz, this is a mimer about Akaras HaTayv. That Akaras HaTayv tells us that it can tell Moshe that even though HaKadosh Baruch Hu said take your stick, but that's not what it means. Hakaras HaTayv can be meshana what the dibur of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and therefore, even though Moshe Rabbeinu was told to take the matter with him, but Hakaras HaTayv should have been machriach Moshe that the dibarta means to talk to the rock because the rock did so much for Klal Yisrael. So Zaktim Chaim Shmulevitz, the Medrash over here says, and the Cheskuni brings it. Nekaim nikmas, Zakt the Medrash, ba'atzmecha. You should do it yourself. Ata mashma, you, right? And then what does Moshe Rabbeinu go and do? Moshe Rabbeinu goes and he sends Pinchas instead. How's that shaykh? Frek the Medrash. What's going on over here? Moshe, HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Moshe to do the nekama, and what does Moshe go and do? He turns around and he tells Pinchas to do it. It's mamash apela. So Zak the Medrash says, Ayadeshin is gadol b'Midyan. Amar, since I grew up in Midyan, eine bedin shani meitze lemisha asali taiva. It doesn't make sense that I should go and kill out or bother someone that did for me a taiva. Effective Chaim Shmulevitz. What do you mean? HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him to do it. So because of Akaras HaTayv, he's going to change? No. Zaktiv Chaim Shmulevitz, that the Chiyuv of Akaras HaTayv is able to be Meshane the Dibur. It means that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu said Nekaim Nikmas, that's not what he meant. That's what this Medrash is telling you. Where should Moshe have known this from? Well, first of all, he should have known it from Mei Meriva, but he should have known it from the Makkos. What happened by the Makkos? Moshe Rabbeinu didn't hit by three of the Makkos. By Dam, Tzvadei, and Kina, Moshe Rabbeinu didn't do it. Aaron did it. Why? Because famous Rashi, that the Ya'ar was Megan on Moshe. It saved him. So even though Moshe should have been the one to do all the 10 Makkos, but Hakaras HaTayv is mechayev that it changes the dibur. So Ibazei, I want to say this is I'm really just adding a neifich to Chaim Shmulevitz because he really says the whole thing. But what was the chait of Moshe Rabbeinu by Mei Meriva was that he didn't use Hakaras HaTayv to fashtei what was going on. But here, by doing this, by being Mekayim, Nekaim Nikmas, that where really it means Ata Ba'atzmecha, really it means you, and you're going, and really what happened was Moshe sent Pinchas, by being Mekayim that, he's being Mesakin the Chet of Mei Meriva. So once he's Mesakin the Chet of Mei Meriva, Achar Teyasef El Amecha, afterwards, you Moshe Rabbeinu, you Mesakin the Chet of Mei Meriva, and Memela, now it's time that Moshe Rabbeinu could be Nifter. So now that's why Moshe Rabbeinu thought that maybe Kosh Baruch was having charot on his shvur, because the whole shvur was because of the chait of Mei Meriva. When did Hakadosh Baruch Hu say Lachein Lo Savi you that you and Aaron aren't going to come by Mei Meriva? So Moshe Rabbeinu thought, maybe now that I'm being misakin the chait of Mei Meriva, maybe now I'll be able to go into Eretz Yisrael. Zokt Rabbeinu Bachya she'eni mischaret mishvurasi. I'm not being mischaret from my shvura. Shkayach.